Hello, everybody. It's Gina from AetherFlows podcast. And in this wonderful episode, I have a very special guest. His name is Michael Bodewitz. There he is right there. He is a Sasquatch communicator, a friend of the Sasquatch. And he's also written a book called Book of Elders. I believe it's on Amazon. You can check it out. But he's got a great website and he does what do? You do like is it mentorships? You help people to open up to the Sasquatch people?
Yeah, so I basically, what the Sasquatch want me to do is to help connect people to the Sasquatch. So I basically help mentor people and help guide people and how they can better connect with the Sasquatch. And that
Okay.
takes on, it depends on the person. Every person's
Mm,
unique and it takes on many forms. So I can't really lay down a bunch of guidelines, but I really have to get a
right.
feel for the person and how the Sasquatch are interacting with the person, because each relationship's unique, between
Mm,
Sasquatch and person. So I
yeah,
just help facilitate that connection. I'm like a bridge between human and Sasquatch. I just help connect them.
that's awesome. I love that. I like to think that I'm doing kind of the same thing with this channel is opening people up to new perspectives and especially with the Sasquatch people because they're kind of my main buds right now. And so, yeah, so I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for being.
Um,
I'm honored to be here.
yeah, oh man, I'm so excited. So I guess let's start with how did this all happen for you?
Um, the 3D physical answer is, it all started for me when my father went hunting when I was a teenager, and
Mm.
he went out hunting, and while he was out hunting, he heard a Sasquatch scream. Um, it's quite it's quite the story. So as it goes, I was probably about 14 when it happened, and I had a little brother. And my dad went out early in the morning before the sun even came up. He was an avid outdoorsman and loved to hunt and fish. And he went out early. It was still dark, and he had a spot picked out. And he went out to a ravine, or like he climbed up at the top of a ravine, climbed at the top of a hill, and was sitting there right as daylight was coming up. And daylight's coming up, and he could hear the birds chirping, and down below in the creek he could hear the deer walking in the creek below, and it was getting lighter and the sun was coming up, and he was waiting to spot any deer down, down where he could possibly harvest them. And as soon as the sun crested the next mountain over, he heard something that shook him to the core. And mind you, my dad is 6'6". He is a big, burly outdoorsman. I've
Mm.
never known him to be scared of anything. And he heard something scream from a mountain away. It scared him so bad that when it screamed, the birds just stopped chirping, went dead silent. He could hear the deer in the creek below run away. And the hair on the back of his neck stood up. And he got so startled that as soon as he heard it, he got the heck out of there.
Mm.
And I remember him when I was 14. I remember him coming up the driveway early in the morning. We had just gotten up. We were, getting breakfast and everything. And he came up and we ran out and we were excited, thinking, he's back early. He got a deer, super excited. We went out there and looked in the back of his truck. He didn't have anything. He just walked in the house, just totally stone face, acting weird. And I went inside and questioned him. I was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "You didn't get a deer? Why are you back?" "I heard something out there." And I'm like, "Okay." And I kind of let him, relax for a little bit before I decided to prod him some more. But eventually I started asking him more questions. And I said, well, what did you hear? What caused you to, basically get the heck out of there? And he goes, I don't know what it was, but it was big. And I said, well, can you describe it? Like, was it a mountain lion screaming? Or when he's like, no, he goes, I've heard everything out there. I have never heard this, and I don't know what it is. So I'm like, well, can you describe, what's the best way to describe it? I'm just this little 14-year-old just prodding my dad, like, hey, I want to know more. What's going on with you? What did you hear? And he said the best way he could describe it, you took a large metal table and you drug it across the room and drug it across the floor. So it would make that sound.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. I was like, did it sound metal? Like a crane was falling over or something? He's like, no, it was not metal. It was an animal and it was huge. He said it sounded like a dinosaur or something. He didn't know what it was. So that was basically the incident that flipped a switch in me and really got my curiosity to, like, what the heck was that? And I went to school, went into the library, started, researching what the heck he could have heard, started running across Sasquatch material. 14 years old, I'm in the library, over in the myths and legends section looking at Sasquatch.
Yeah, me too.
So that's kind of what got me started, the 3D physical answer. And ever since I was 14, I've had kind of just an interest in Sasquatch, not really actually going out and doing anything. It was fun to look up on the internet and it was fun to look at books, but that's basically where it stayed for a long time. So that was the 3D physical answer. That wasn't actually my first experience. I want to say like 8 years ago, I was in meditation and I was able to unlock a deep memory that had been suppressed in me. And this memory, when I was able to unlock it, was my first actual encounter with the Sasquatch when I was 7 years old.
Oh, okay.
And it goes, so this memory, it was really interesting because I was in meditation. And when I was in meditation, I had this vision of this spot in my yard where I knew where the spot was where I grew up, and it was over by the fence. And I saw that in a vision in meditation. And I remember being in meditation like, okay, I know that spot. I'm like, why am I being shown this spot in meditation? And I felt like there was something special that happened there. And I said, okay, I want to know what's going on. What's going on with this spot? Why am I being shown this spot? And something unlocked in my subconscious, and the whole memory of that experience came rushing back in an instant. It was like a download. It was like my subconscious unlocked that memory, that experience, and it came rushing back into my consciousness as I'm in meditation. And it flooded back, and I recalled that experience I had when I was 7 years old. And so the experience goes, I'm 7 years old, and it wasn't too long before I had moved up to this location where I grew up in the woods. It was I moved from Arizona when I was about 6-7 years old. We moved to Oregon, and we moved up my dad had bought this old logging office. It was a logging office converted into a house. So it was really small. It was up in the woods. So we moved up there. Shortly after we moved up there, I went outside one day. It was broad daylight. I went outside, and I felt this draw. I'm 7 years old, and I feel this pull. Something is pulling me to walk over to the fence line that separates our property and the neighbor's property. I had this pull to go over there and stand there. It was a weird magnetic draw, and I walked over to the fence and I stood in that spot. Once I stood in that spot, I could hear something on the other side of the fence in the brush. I could hear it. It was big, and it was moving towards me. I could hear it slowly crunching around and moving and coming towards me. And I knew that it was going to come towards me, and eventually I was going to be able to see it. Seconds later, this huge black Sasquatch comes and opens up the bushes and steps into into visibility for me. And I'm telling you, I'm standing on one side of the fence. This black Sasquatch is probably 15 feet away, parts the brush, walks out in the open and stands there right in front of me and looks at me. And I am standing there, a 7-year-old, I am standing there looking at this 9-foot tall Sasquatch, all black, full physical form, like you and I, standing there looking at me. And I literally have the image burned in my mind of what he looked like. And in that moment, I don't remember being scared. I was just curious, like, who is this? What is this? What, we just looked at each other and we just stared at each other. And he had really dark eyes. Like you couldn't even see the pupil. They were just dark, like nocturnal looking eyes.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. And he was looking at me, and for a moment we just looked at each other, and it was this feeling came over me. And like I said, I wasn't scared. This feeling came over me, and it was the oddest feeling. It was like I've known this Sasquatch, like he was a family member, and I've known him. And I just had this warm energy rush over me, and just this comfortable energy. And in that moment, it seemed like time had stopped. There was just a brief moment where like time totally stopped. Him and I had this moment. We were looking at each other and we bonded. We had this bond. We created this bond. And he gave this, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. He gave this little, like, kind of the corner of his mouth, little smile. He just gave me this little smile. And then he literally just turned around and walked back into the bush, parted the bushes and, moved the trees and walked in and just disappeared into the bushes. Wow. And I just stood there and watched him leave. And in that moment, what he told me later is after he left, he psychically suppressed that memory in me. So he used his consciousness and he suppressed that memory in me. So I just remember standing there, and when I was a 7-year-old, I was just standing there and just looking around like, okay, why am I standing here? And then I just kind of went off and played ball or did what I did. And so that I didn't run into my house and tell my dad, I saw a Sasquatch. Oh my God. And, freaking out. He suppressed that memory as soon as he walked away. He told me this later. He suppressed it because of 2 reasons. He told me the first reason he did that was because he knew I was coming up to that location before I even got there. He was expecting me. He knew that I was going to be coming there. And when I showed up to that house, he came out and he made the bond. He said, we energetically made the bond. I came out, I approached you, and I sealed that bond. It is a very special thing that the Sasquatch do. And he sealed that bond. That's what the whole energy was. That's the whole calm, family feeling. He sealed that bond. And then he was smart enough to know that he was going to not really erase the memory, but suppress it into my consciousness until I was ready to receive it.
Hmm.
He actually had the ability to suppress that memory in my consciousness. And when I reached a certain level of consciousness, I would be able myself to recall that memory. So that's what happened. And so that was my first real experience of meeting the Sasquatch. Then my dad's experience came, later when I was 14. But that's two different answers that I was going to give you. Both are in the book, and I explain it in the book. But yeah, that's how it all started for me. Pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, man. I mean, I have a few memories like that of when I was a kid, not quite with Sasquatch, but with other beings when I was really, really young. That I had kind of I mean, I don't know if they were suppressed, but I think I probably suppressed them myself until I was much older, and then I was like, wait a second, this memory was actually really strange. Like, why did I not think this was weird before? But wow, that's incredible. So you're still in contact with this one guy, right?
Oh yeah, his name's Balana, and he's
Mm.
actually, this is him right here.
Oh, okay.
Ravenhawk.
Balana?
Yeah, Ravenhawk did the artwork and
Oh,
channeled
okay.
Balana. Channel
Mm.
Balana and made this artwork. So that actually looks really close to what he looks like in real life.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm still in contact with him. He's been my main mentor, my main Sasquatch guide, and it got to a point where, so to kind of fast forward really quick, from when I was 14 and my dad had that experience, it was just, just an interest I had, something that I could go in the library and read up on and stuff like that. And that's all it was for the longest time. And when I was probably, it was 2011, I think was, not too long ago, 2011, I had a spiritual awakening. Um, I, for the longest time, I wasn't a believer in God or the source or anything like that. I didn't know what to believe. And I had this experience in 2011 from God, which basically opened my eyes to his existence or her existence or the source's existence. Um, it was an experience that flipped a switch within me that created an awakening within me to the fact that, there is a great creator, and there is more to this universe, more to life than what we see in front of us. And that spiritual awakening, after I had that, I was on this journey, this spiritual journey to know more about God. And I went through Christianity. I started with Christianity, went to church, trying to search for answers, going through Christianity, and then I fell out of Christianity and started going to other sources, and I had this journey, the spiritual journey, trying to find answers, and along that journey, one thing I realized was, oh my gosh, God's real. He really exists. She really exists. What else exists that I've always thought was just like, nah. I said, well, if God exists, why can't Sasquatch be out there walking around? And why can't I go out and have an experience with Sasquatch like I'm experiencing, with God, and having this relationship? And that awakening kind of reignited my desire to get answers about Sasquatch as well.
Mhm.
It just kind of fueled this passion to want to know more about what's out there. So I went on this, and I hate to give credit to this show because it's so ridiculous, but I have to give credit to it because it's part of my journey. I'm sure you've heard of the show Finding Bigfoot. That show
Mhm.
actually gave me the idea to actually go out there and do what they do, and actually go out there for myself and see if I could have my own experience like they did. So
Mhm.
that show that kind of came out, along the same lines as my spiritual awakening, and that got me to go out in the woods. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go out in the woods. I'm going to go out there and, look for myself and see if I could find any evidence of if they actually exist.
Mm.
And, I went out there and I did the whole researcher thing. I started off as a researcher. I went out there looking for evidence. And, I started coming across physical evidence. I would get with locals that, had Sasquatch sightings and had, interactions with Sasquatch around here. I got in contact with them, and then I would hook up with them and go out with them and see if I could experience, any kind of physical evidence. And I did that for a few years. And I met with this person, I met with that person. I became part of the Willamette Valley Bigfoot Society, and I had a T-shirt and cap, and I went out there
Mhm.
and did the researcher stuff, and trying to collect physical evidence and report sightings. I went through all of that. A few years of that hardcore, and I experienced things out there. I experienced physical things. I saw tracks. I heard noises. I heard them, breaking branches. I had them throw pebbles at me. I would experience a lot of physical things while I was doing my researcher. And the Sasquatch, knew I was at that level, and they would interact with me at that level, that physical level. And I did that for a while, and I tell this to people. I said, if you do this long enough, you're eventually going to run into the paranormal aspect of Sasquatch. It's not just you're going to get to the physical level. You're going to, start out there most likely, but you're going to run across people that experience the woo, you know, or the paranormal aspects of Sasquatch. You're going to start hearing about cloaking. You're going to start hearing about, telepathy. You're going to start hearing about all these things, interdimensionality. You're going to hear about
Mm.
all these things. And at that point, you're either going to go, whoa, no, no, no. Nope, I don't believe in that. Nope, I'm going to stay right here on the physical side, and I'm going to look for evidence, And a lot of these researchers do that. They don't cross that barrier. They don't cross that barrier into the paranormal side, and they stay on this side of the fence, and they keep going out looking for evidence. They keep going out looking for physical things, which is totally fine. I mean, if that's what you
Mm.
want to do, and that's the experience you want to have with the Sasquatch, that's cool. But there's a whole different aspect to the Sasquatch that if you're willing to step over that line and go down that rabbit hole, then you're going to experience some pretty amazing things. And I was at that line. I started, talking to people that have saw them and experienced them cloak, and, had them mind speak and stuff like that. And I had to take a step back. I was like, wow. I'm like, do I really believe in this stuff? Do I want to pursue this? Or I had to do a very self examination at that moment. And I told myself, I was like, I'm all in. I got bit by the Sasquatch bug, and I want to go all in and know as much as I can about these beings. And I went for it. I went for it. I was like, I'm not going to leave any rock unturned. I'm going all in. So I went all in, and I crossed that line into the paranormal aspect. And I started talking to people. I started, looking into the cloaking, and I had an open mind. I didn't just shut it down. That's the biggest thing I tell people is keep an open mind with these things. Don't just shut things down. keep an open mind and actually, do a little research, look into things. Could this actually happen? Could this be an experience that somebody's experienced? And, I kept an open mind, and I actually pursued the woo aspect of it, the paranormal aspect. And I got with some people that, some local people that have actually experienced cloaking and stuff like that, and started palling around with them. It got to a point where the Sasquatch started playing with me. Like I was making a step to want to know more about them, and they knew that, and they were testing me. So they would start playing with me. And I remember one time I went out with a buddy and went out in the woods, and we went to the spot, and we knew there was kind of an open spot in the forest, and we knew they were around us. We could hear them moving around us, and they started whistling. They do like this whistle, and it kind of sounds like like that. And we heard it on one side of the opening, and then we heard it on another side, and then we heard it on another, and we were surrounded by them, and they were whistling back and forth. And it was really creepy, honestly. I was a little creeped out by it, And I mean, I wasn't like scared, but it was really creepy that they were just whistling all around us, and we were surrounded, And honestly, if the Sasquatch were mean and, human killers, we would have been dead like that. We wouldn't have had a chance. But they're not like that. They're not like that. And they were whistling all around us, and the first feeling I got was creepiness. And then the second was, they're just messing with us. They're just playing with us. They
have a great sense of humor.
Them chuckling, like, haha, look at it, and they were just playing with us. And I felt like they were just messing with us, and it actually pissed me off. I got pissed off. And I remember, because I had such a passion to want to meet them and to know more about them, and to like sit down with them, and almost like a Jane Goodall does with the chimps, but they're not chimps, to sit down with them and learn from them, And I had this drive, this passion to do that, but yet they were playing with me, and they were just messing with me, and I got pissed, and I started yelling at them out there in their home, out there in the forest. I started yelling at them. I was like, why aren't you coming out? I was like, we know you're here. We know. Why aren't you coming out? And I was just yelling at them in the forest. And they just stopped. They stopped their interaction, and it just stopped. And it's almost like I disrespected them,
Oh, yeah.
And so me and my buddy left. And after that, I felt it. I could feel it. And I know now that they were connected to me, and they were giving me feelings. But I felt that I disrespected them, and I felt that, how dare I come out into their home in the woods and start yelling at them, And I left that day vowing that I would never do anything like that again. And I also had a change of mind about how I was going to go about interacting with them. And what I decided was, I said to myself, they're just playing with me. And this physical, trying to get with them physically, it doesn't have any substance to it. It's very basic, I need to reach them at a higher level. I need to reach them at a spiritual level. I have to do the work spiritually to try to connect with them. So I made the decision to start meditating and working on myself spiritually to try to connect to them on a higher level, because I knew they had abilities that, far surpassed humans. They have ability to do all these things. So they're very connected with who they are. They're very connected with the source. So I vowed to try to connect with them on a spiritual level. and to show my heart instead of going out there and trying to shove a video camera in their face, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. One thing that Sam Chandler, when I was interviewing him, he told me a great story about how he kind of had a similar kind of a similar mentality about it at first, and or he had kind of had this like compulsion to learn more about them, like he wanted to know more and more. And I think he ended up getting this telepathic message that was like, you want to know so much about us, but you don't know anything about yourself. And I thought that was very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah, I
He
know
goes
Sam.
searching. Yeah, Sam's great. I love him.
Yeah,
He's
he's
awesome.
a really good guy. Really, really good heart. Very, very spiritual. Very, very full of wisdom. Very good guy.
Yeah.
I can't say it as much. I mean, he's just great. I love him. Um, but yeah, he's absolutely correct. Um, so I started doing the spiritual work and started meditating. And at first, meditation wasn't working for me. I did it 2 weeks straight, didn't experience anything. Like I would sit for an hour and a half, just totally still and listening to the meditation music, and nothing would happen. And I did it, and I told myself I would do it for 2 weeks straight, and if nothing happens, then I would abandon it. Literally, the very end of my 2 weeks of meditation, I started experiencing things, and it started with visions, started with flashes of images in my head. And I would get random images. I would get random flashes of just images I didn't even know what they were. And when I talk in like images, it's like detailed where I could draw them. They were so detailed. And I would get an image of a plane flying in the air, or I would get an image of somebody's face that I didn't know. And what I realized, what I was doing is I opened myself up. And when I opened myself up, I was picking up energy signatures from around me, and they were coming to me. So a plane was flying, or there was this person over there that I picked up their face, or whatever. I was picking up these random images. And one of my really good friends at the time, Michelle Brown, I was telling her about my experiences. Like, I get all these images, but I don't know what they are. And she's like, well, try setting an intention. You're just going in there and you're just opening up, but you're not setting any kind of intentions, and you're just allowing whatever to come to you. If you set an intention before you meditate, at least you have that guideline, so to speak. You have that intention to say, hey, I want to connect with the Sasquatch, or hey, I want to connect with this. And then you start opening yourself up. You set that intentional energy, and then that's what you draw to you. So through that, I started setting intentions, and I was able to weed out the random visions that I would get, and then I started getting the visions that I wanted and the intentions I was setting. And yeah, meditation changed my whole life. Like, I started experiencing all kinds of things, not just Sasquatch related. I opened myself up to connections with star beings, connections with past lives. I unlocked the knowledge within me and all around me, and was able to see it with my psychic ability that I had. Everybody has this psychic ability. Everybody has this ability. They just don't know how to use it. You got to actually remember how to use it. And that means you got to sit still and meditate and, calm yourself and remember your natural abilities. Right now, we're so busy that we shut all of our abilities off, and we're just, robots working in society. If we actually slow down, go within, reconnect to ourselves, we'll reawaken our natural abilities that have been living dormant within us for a while. This is what we're here to do. And the Sasquatch have helped me do that. It was because of my pursuit to know the Sasquatch that I started to know myself, just like Sam said, just like the Sasquatch told Sam. It's like when you start really pursuing the Sasquatch, you actually start to know yourself better. You start to open that spiritual person that you are, and you know yourself, and you grow, in your spirituality. And that's how it went. So yeah, I started experiencing all kinds of things in meditation, and I started connecting to the Sasquatch and talking with him through telepathy. And Balana, the Sasquatch that I saw when I was 7, felt that I was ready because I had done the work, and I was able to, reach out to him telepathically, and we connected again, and we started having lessons. He'd sit down with me and do lessons and share knowledge with me. And that was a special thing. And it's funny because these lessons, it wasn't like he physically came to me and sat down. He didn't have to. And that's honestly how the Native Americans did it as well. The Native Americans were very spiritual, and that's how they interacted with the Sasquatch, is they did it on a spiritual level. They would connect with the Sasquatch spiritually, and then they would be able to talk to them through telepathy, as a back and forth conversation. And it's telepathy. That's another thing I try to teach people, is how to use their telepathic abilities. Because I had to learn how to use it myself. And there's so many little subtle aspects to telepathy. It's not just one thing. It's a bunch of little aspects that you kind of flavor into your style of telepathy. It goes from, getting visions was the first thing that I received, but it also goes with feelings. You can get feelings sent to you. You see sentences, words in your head,
Mm-hmm.
information downloads. There's all kinds of things that can come in and create this telepathic communication. So I had to learn how to use it and learn how to, flavor my own telepathic style, so to speak, in order to communicate with the Sasquatch, communicate with Balana. And I would also communicate with other beings as well. But yeah, I started having lessons with Balana. And after I would have this telepathic communication and meditation with Balana, after I get done, then I'd go write it down. I'd put it on the computer, or write it down in my notebook. And I did that for years. I also, wrote down communications from, star people, and communications from mermaids and any other beings that I would come in contact in my meditation that wanted to give me a message that I wrote down. I got all this information. I got all these messages from. It's like once your antenna's on, once you have your antenna open, it's like all these beings that are unseen and at higher dimensions go, "Oh, look, he can hear us. Like,
Yep.
let's talk to him. Let's go
Yeah.
get his message." I'm sure you've experienced something like that.
Oh, definitely. I'm in contact with a family of Sasquatch people in my area, and I've had some pretty cool experiences with them. Yeah, I thought at first that telepathy had to be a certain way. It had to be like these big booming words in your mind, and if it wasn't that, then you weren't doing it right or something. But after realizing that all of your senses are involved, and other senses that we don't even know about yet, I started to realize that they were definitely sending me messages. And then after I kind of opened myself up to that, that's when the real stuff started happening. And I would get these conversations when I was going to sleep with my guys, and it was all stuff like, them telling me about how certain emotions are trapped in like the ligaments and the bones of your body, and just like all of these like really detailed high level conversations that I would have with them. And I wish I would have written them down, but I would fall asleep and then I'd wake up the next morning and be like, man, something intense happened. But and then I would remember parts of it later. But yeah, I've had some pretty cool telepathic communications with them. I've also like I got to be kind of pen pals or Facebook friends with Mike Patterson, and he gave me the idea to like audio record in my house. And so I would sit in my room, go into meditation, and turn the phone recording thing on and ask them, just be like, hey, you want to hang out, you want to connect energy. And then I would sit in meditation for about an hour and I would turn it off and replay it. And I would hear like, I would get like grunts and growls, and also this like big vibrating sort of sound, like a giant moth that would kind of
Mhm.
buzz around. I would
Yeah,
hear that every
I've
once in a
actually had
while.
that as well. I've had
Oh,
that
you
as
have?
well, where it sounds like it's a giant insect or a bee,
Yeah.
or it's just like a
Mhm.
buzzing that goes around you. And you're like
Mhm.
looking around. Like I had that in the forest one time where I was literally sitting in a bunch of sword ferns out in the forest just by
Mm.
myself. And I heard this buzzing. I thought there's this like big bumblebee around me. And it was right here. And I'm like looking around. I'm like, where is this bee? I don't see it. And it's like right there. And it just went around me like, and it went around and I went back home in meditation, and that's how I get answers. And that's how I communicate with the Sasquatch. And I asked about the bee. I was like, what was with the bee? Like, I
Mhm.
didn't see a bee. And this female Sasquatch that was like a mom to me, named Talicia, she was like, that was me, silly.
Oh.
So
Oh,
she
that's
was
awesome.
buzzing around me. Yeah.
I
She's
love
passed
that.
away, but she was really like a mom to me. She always watched over me when I went up into the woods. I didn't know it at the time, but later on, she told me she always kept an eye on me when I was up in the woods walking around and playing and stuff when I was a kid. Um,
Hmm.
but the first vision of a Sasquatch I ever got was of her in my head. She was, and I remember it clear as day. She sent me just a snapshot of her face, and she had this messy hair on top. It was like curly and messy and just like a messy top. And I could see her smiling, and she had this very weathered looking face, and she was smiling. But the thing that stuck out the most was her piercing blue eyes. She had these
Wow.
piercing blue eyes that just lit up, and they just had so much light in them. And that's the thing I remember the most. But she was the one that I was the first vision that I ever received of a Sasquatch was her face, and I'll remember it till I die. It was such a beautiful vision.
I love that. That's amazing. So, so are you still in contact with her even though she passed away?
So she passed away, and the Sasquatch, especially the higher consciousness Sasquatch, they have the ability. They live for hundreds of years. They live for a long
Mhm.
time. They have the ability to leave their incarnation at will. So when they decide that they're done, they will literally transition out and leave the incarnation, and
Mm.
will basically drop their physical body and leave. She kind of told me that it was going to happen, and um, she she transitioned, and her mate Malwani, who's still alive today and actually has taken over Balana's clan. Malwani came to me and told me that she had passed away. And shortly after that, she had come to me in meditation after she had passed away. and connected with me in meditation. And she basically told me that it was her time to go, and she was on to a new incarnation. So the Sasquatch, I mean, they're really amazing beings. They're very, and what I try to tell people, and what I want to try to tell people that are trying to understand who the Sasquatch are, is they are so much more than just, they're very, very highly evolved. They have amazing abilities. And they are here to protect this earth. They're keepers of this home world. They're here. That was their original soul mission when we were seated here, was to help protect this planet and to be keepers of this planet. And they're very earth-based. They're an earth-based energy. So they're very, so like you have star people, they're very star-based energies. The Sasquatch are very earth-based energies. Once you start connecting with a Sasquatch, like a soul-to-soul level, don't be surprised if you turn into a hippie. Don't be surprised if you get really connected to the earth.
Yeah.
You start walking barefoot. You start becoming, wanting to live more simply and get away from the technology. You start wanting to be in nature more. You start wanting to your diet. You may change your diet where you want things, more natural diet. You just start, don't be surprised if you connect with a Sasquatch, you're going to connect very hardcore to the earth. Like, I remember deeply being, getting deeply connected with a Sasquatch. I was so connected with Gaia that I literally wanted to just rip my clothes off and just go meld with myself naked into nature. I wanted to be in the dirt, and I wanted to be part of the trees, and I just wanted to meld with the environment. I just had this connection. I just wanted to dig my feet in the dirt and just walk purely into the forest and just be totally, and put my feet in the stream. And I just had this very deep draw to get so closely connected with the earth. And that that has to do with, that's part of the connection that you get with the Sasquatch, is they pull that to you. You get that very close connection to the earth, and it's changed my life.
I've noticed with myself, this journey has totally changed my perspective on nature and on the planet as well. I mean, I've always kind of been a bit of a hippie and on and off vegetarian for a long time. But yeah, I mean, in my earlier days, I had no connection to nature at all. I felt no need to go in the woods or anything like that. I grew up in cities, and that's where I wanted to be. And yeah, with all of this happening, it's like I just I drag my wife out into the woods all the time now. And she humors me. She's happy to do it, but for me it's like I need that, otherwise I kind of lose, well, I get ungrounded, and I never really knew what being ungrounded felt like until I really
Grounded.
connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, until I got grounded, and then I was like, "Oh, that's what all that anxiety and depression and anger is about. It's about not being grounded." Now I feel so much more in alignment, and I mean, I'm still working on it, obviously, but yeah, it's so important. And I've told people too, I'm like, I just want to be in the woods, just like digging around in the dirt, hanging out with the trees, and
Yeah.
like taking pictures of stumps and stuff in the woods. And like, that's what's fun for me these days. I love it.
Well, yeah, it's a call. The Sasquatch are calling us to raise our vibration. They
Mm,
see they see that we live in concrete jungles where we hardly ever stick our feet on the bare earth. You know, they
Mm.
see that we're constantly bombarded by electrical cellular signals, and the we're being poisoned. We, you know, what we eat, you know, there's poison in our food, there's poison in our water, there's poison in our air. You know, our society, the Sasquatch see all this. Our society is leading us down a path that is not for our best interest. The Sasquatch are calling us to come back to nature, come back and raise our vibration again. It's all about, once you raise your vibration, you raise your consciousness. You know, that's what they're trying to get us to do, is to remember who we are and how special we are and how powerful we are and how creative we are. And they're trying to get us to remember who we are. Everybody's forgotten, you know, they're stuck in this rat race of the 9 to 5 job, and, you know, sipping on their lattes and going to work and, you know, doing daycare and stuff like that. It's like, it's not how we're supposed to live. You know, we're supposed to be healthy. We're supposed to be connected to one another. We're supposed to be stewards of this planet and not destroy it. You know, the Sasquatch are trying to help us remember, and we're on a path that's not good. And they're trying to take us and guide us back to, you know, a path that actually is good for us, where we're healthy, where we raise our vibration, where we remember our natural abilities. We start working with energy again. We start meditating. We start using, and they're trying to guide us, because they did. We used to live with them when we first were seated here. That's what they told me when we were first seated here by the Star People. We were living with them. They were guiding us. That was one of their missions, was to take care of this home planet and to help guide us in our evolution. And we strayed from that.
Did they tell you anything about how that split happened? Like, how did we get separated from them?
Yeah, so that's it. It's in my book, actually. And so what happened is, like, in the beginning, we were seated here by the Star People, a group of us were, and the Sasquatch have already been here long before we were. We came. The Sasquatch were here, like, kind of our caretakers to help guide us in our evolution. They taught us how to live on Earth. They taught us how to work with energy. They taught us a lot of things. And for a long time, we lived harmoniously with the Sasquatch as elder brothers and sisters. And there was a point where everything was going great for so long that, you know, that if you live in paradise for so long, eventually you're going to get bored. And a group of people were like, is this it? Is this all there is to it? I mean, are we just, you know, isn't there another way? And there was this divide where certain people lowered their vibration. All it takes is a little bit of negative thinking to lower your vibration. All it takes is, like, one person to start a conversation and to get others to believe it, and into negative thinking and into division, and it just starts a steamroll. So this group of people was like, they started having these lower vibrations, started having these negative thoughts, and started saying, well, we don't want the Sasquatch to, you know, are we not as good as the Sasquatch? We don't want to be coddled by them all the time. You know, we don't want to have them, you know, be our caretakers all the time. We want to do it by ourselves. They started to want to have all this independent thinking and independent, and then they started getting angry, and they started having these negative emotions, and they started lowering their vibration, and they started losing their natural abilities, telepathy and energy work. And then they started trying to figure out how to survive without the Sasquatch, started to try to think about how to survive without the Sasquatch. And then they, at that level that they were at, they started using technology. They started using physical things to try to survive instead of using their natural abilities. So they started using tools and technology, and they separated themselves from the Sasquatch, and that created a divide. And technology became basically their god, where they, instead of using the natural abilities that we all have, in in energy and manifestation, and being able to move things with our mind and telepathy and energy work, they started using and creating technology, and it created this divide. And there was a group that stayed with the Sasquatch, and then there was a group that strayed away, and that kind of started the whole divide between it, and it's been a downfall ever since.
Yeah, it sounds pretty familiar. Kind of like the transhumanism sort of stuff going on. It's weird, like the whole ancient alien thing where people are just convinced that all of that, like the pyramids and all of these amazing structures around the world had to have been built by aliens. And it's like, don't you trust that we're amazing? Like, don't you like, we have all of this inner tech within our
Right.
structures, and we lost all of our knowledge. So now people like to rely on having a chip in your brain or something like that. And it's like, no, you don't have to go that far. You can just start meditating.
Yeah, exactly. It's we have to remain connected to ourselves and our spirituality, and our divine power within. Once we stray away and we start using technology, using things outside of us to govern, there was this quote that I heard, said something like, when you become a product of your technology instead of the technology being a product of you, that's when destruction happens.
Hmm.
So technology is useful, but it needs to be a product of your consciousness. When technology, like we have going on right now, where technology basically, we become a product of the technology instead of the technology being a product of our consciousness, that's where the destruction happens. That's where it takes over, you know. So the Sasquatch are trying to get us to stay connected with our spirituality and not, lose ourselves in our technology. Because that's originally what happened in the very beginning, is a group did that.
Yeah, I mean, you hear the stories about Atlantis, and that really resonates about a group that wanted to use technology versus another group that was, using their inner tech, their connection with the all that is.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess it just goes in cycles. But
Yeah, the Sasquatch have been around a long time. They've seen us rise and fall multiple times as a human species.
oh, I'm
It's
sure.
Atlantis and Lemuria. That was one time. There's been several other times where, the human species has risen to the great utopia, the great golden era, and totally blown it. You know, so and
We love drama, I guess.
I guess the Sasquatch have seen it all, and they know, and
Yeah.
we're kind of heading in that direction again, honestly. And the Sasquatch are trying to tell us, no, not again, please, don't do it again. We're here to guide you. We're here to call you back. We're here to try to prevent any kind of you know fall once again that the human species is going to do. One reason I'm incarnated right now is because it's a very, very important time that we're living right now. It's I can't state how important it is to be living in this time and place right now. There's so many things happening, not only right in front of us, but things that are unseen that we're not aware of. amazing things that are happening behind the scenes, with the Galactic Federation and all that. There's a lot of things happening right now, and everybody's looking at the human species. Everybody's looking at
Yeah.
humanity on Earth going,
We're the big show right now.
yeah, are they going to do it or are they not? Or, what's going to happen? So,
Who knows? Who knows? Who can say? I used to feel so much anxiety about, my mission and my work in trying to save the planet and save humanity and being a star seed and all that. And I feel like a lot of that has kind of, I don't want to say fallen away, but I've come to the realization that this is all an experience, whether I consider it positive or negative, and we're all kind of just collecting data for creator. And I'm not going to put all this pressure on myself to try to save the save the world or the universe, but yeah, it's definitely a very interesting time to be here right now to
yeah,
experience. So,
it's a play, it's an experience. We all decided to jump in and have this experience together. And,
exactly.
sometimes we take it too seriously. We just need to relax and, enjoy it and make the best out of it, because
Right.
it's just an experience. It's not how things are going to stay. It's just, what do we decide to do? What part of us, what grand part of us is going to show up in this experience? Are
Mhm.
we going to rise above, everything that's going on around us and rise above it and reclaim, our divinity and rise to the highest aspect of ourselves? Or are we going to bite to the lower aspect and fall and go into the depths and the muck and the mire of it all? Um,
Yeah.
and it's a challenge. We all agreed to do it together and have this amazing experience together.
Right. Yeah, also to realize, I mean, for myself, one of the big revelations was realizing that everything going on in the exterior, in the collective, is going on within me. And so I can't just
Amen.
absolve myself of responsibility from it all and be like, oh well, that's the baddies over there. I'm a good person. It's like, no, it's all within all of us, and that's the game, is to
Yeah.
realize that and to love it,
Yeah.
you know, to
Exactly.
transmute it by loving it. So that's
We are
that's
all
one of
our
my
own.
projects going on right now.
Yeah. We're all our own creators. It's all about perspective, how you see.
Exactly.
Do you look within or do you look what's in front of you? It's all about perspective and how you see. Look with your heart. Look
Yeah,
within. You don't go within, you go without, you know?
exactly. I feel like the greatest lesson that my forest friends have taught me, well, others have taught me as well, is to just concentrate on keeping your heart open.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that heart chakra. I've actually seen that with the Sasquatch. It's pretty amazing. Like I remember I captured this one Sasquatch on film and he was right there and I was out there and I was playing flute because I love to play Native American flute. And I
Oh,
was
that's
out there. I knew
awesome.
they were out there and I was playing flute for them. And I got done and I could see one sitting over by a log just enjoying me playing the flute. And he was morphing himself into the stump. Like you could literally, I call it like I call it camo cloak. Is like where
Mhm.
he's morphing himself into the stump, and he's sitting there. And I asked him if I could get him on film, and he said yeah.
Hmm.
And I started filming him, and the film actually can pick up energy different than what you can see. So the
Mm.
film actually picked up his heart chakra. You could actually see a giant, like huge
Wow.
circle right where his heart was. And it was his
Yeah.
it was his heart chakra energy. And
Wow.
it was huge. And you can see it in the video. And I'm like, that it was one of the most amazing videos that I've taken. And I was so humbled that, I was allowed to be there with that Sasquatch and experience that. But yeah, we definitely have to, I find when I connect with the Sasquatch that the heart chakra is the most important. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
all chakras work together, but if I had to, single out a certain chakra that's most important for the Sasquatch, it's your heart chakra. Like,
Mm.
you really have to work on your heart chakra. You have to work on your heart. They know where your heart is. When you go out there, they can read your energy. They read your aura. They know if you're, misaligned or you're, not quite aligned. They can tell which chakra's out, If you really want to connect with the Sasquatch, work on your heart chakra. That's where they connect with you. That's where they get you, right here. They connect with
Mm.
you, make you weep. They'll hit you
Oh
with a
yeah.
chakra. They'll hit you with that love, and then you just weep tears. And that unconditional love, the most pure unconditional love, they'll hit you with that in your heart chakra, and it'll just make you weep.
Oh yeah. I've several times have been out in the woods just like bawling my eyes out because it's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost like a pain, but it's like a really nice pain. It's hard to explain.
Always like, oh, I just feel so good. And you start
I
crying.
know. Yeah, I know, it's funny. But yeah, I mean, that's how they say hello, I think, to me anyway, is by kinda giving you that love bomb.
Yeah. I've had
Um,
them say hello in many different ways. Like, they're not limited to any ways that they say hello. Like, I remember one time I had a gentle warm breeze wash over me,
oh,
and
okay.
after it washed over me and it kind of wrapped over me and then just kind of went away, I had telepathy. It says, "Hey, I just said hello." I was like, "Oh, that was cool. Heck yeah."
That's nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they could
That's
say hi
great.
in many ways.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I just, it's one of the most just one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had is this whole opening up to them. It's changed everything. So
Yeah.
it's been
That's
awesome.
what I want everybody to experience. That's what I'm here for, you know. This is why I incarnated, was to help people experience who the Sasquatch really are. What you've experienced is how I want all people to experience them, that deep
Yeah.
connection, that soul to soul connection, you know. You can go out there, people are going to be like, I want proof, I want to see them. I want a video of them. I want proof. I'm like, you go prove it to yourself. I'm like,
Mhm.
you go out there, you're not going to need proof. When you truly connect with the Sasquatch soul to soul, proof has no need. That's not what you're after anymore.
Mm.
After that, you just want that relationship. You want to connect with them. You want to feel that again. You want to have that relationship, that bond, you know. The
Yeah.
proof is out the door.
Yeah, I never really I don't look for prints or any or bring my I hardly even bring my camera out anymore when I go into the woods. I just because you don't need it.
No, you don't need it. I mean, it's just a matter of where you put the priority in it. Physical
Mm.
stuff is still cool. Like when I see a track, I'm still giddy as a schoolboy. I'm like, "Oh yeah," And I'll take my
Yeah.
shoe off and I'll put my bare foot in the
I've done
track.
that too. Do you feel like a big wave of energy coming up your body
Yep,
when you do
yep,
that? It's like
yep,
your whole
exactly.
body's like, "Meh."
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
exactly. You do that, you put your foot in the track, they leave
Mm.
their energy in that track. And you can
Mhm.
actually bond and connect with the Sasquatch that left that track. I've been able to pinpoint, who it was that left the track and their name, if they're a male, female, whatever, just by putting my foot in their track. So
Mm.
there's that bond, that energetic bond that happens on physical things. So physical things have its place, but you got to really, the priority isn't on physical. You shouldn't always just focus on physical. It's
Right.
part of the soup, so to speak. part of the spiritual soup of it. You got to have the physical, but where you really want, is the bond, the spiritual bond with the Sasquatch. That's what they want you to have.
Definitely. The ones that I see the most, the tracks that I see the most are the little baby ones, which
Oh,
are,
really?
I think, I don't know. I feel like it's almost this like another level of trust where it's like, we're going to show you our babies.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
yeah, it's so cool. I just feel like it's so special that they allow me to have that. So those are the
I'm
ones that
actually,
I'll get giddy and I'm like, "Ee!"
yeah.
Because they're so cute. I mean, they're just adorable. So
I've had the babies on me on my lap, like
what?
like in meditation. Like I was in meditation
Really?
time. I
Wow.
was in meditation, and then I felt something crawling on me, like lightly, like very lightly, because
Mhm.
they're in a, a cloaked state. They're in
Mm,
a state that they're very light. When they get on you, you can barely feel them. But I was in
mm.
meditation, sitting really, really still, and I felt them crawling on me very lightly. And I was like, I could feel them touching my arm. You can feel the little hands touching your arm and stuff.
So cute.
And then
I
I
love
kind
that.
of tuned in. I focused on that while I was in meditation, and I saw the mom sitting in front of me on the ground, and then I saw the two babies on me, really young. They were really young. They had to be, you know, super, like maybe 3 years old or something, super young.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I asked them if like, can you touch my hand? And I put my hand out like that. And I was waiting for them to touch my hand like that. And I just sat there in meditation. I said, it's okay. I'm not going to do anything. I said, could you just please touch my hand? And I waited for like 3 minutes. And finally, I got this little light touch like that. And I was so giddy. I was like,
oh my
thank you. Thank you
god.
so much.
Love
It's
it. I
amazing
love
when
it.
you experience that. I mean, that's
Mm,
amazing. That's
yeah.
just life changing right there.
It really is. It really is. It just puts everything into perspective and all of the stuff, all the little hamster wheel sort of things that you worry about kind of melt away,
Yeah.
when stuff like that happens. And you're like, okay,
Hmm.
gotta
That's life.
prioritize.
That's life's treasures right there. And when you
Yeah.
experience those beautiful little life treasures, then it kind of gives you a perspective what really is beautiful and what really matters in life. And it's not the hamster wheels. It's not. I mean, it's a game. We're playing the game. You got to
Yeah.
see it as a game. We're here to play the game, but we're also here to experience the higher aspects, and what really matters about life. There's the
Yeah.
grandeur and the highest ideas that we have about who we are in this existence. So this is my Book of Elders. This is the hardcover version.
All right.
It's on Amazon. You can get it in hardcover, softcover, also Kindle. Anybody that's interested in the Sasquatch, check the book out. You won't be disappointed. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get it. I've heard it so much about it, about what an awesome book it is. So I gotta get it for myself and check it out.
Yeah. And just a final message. If you are truly interested in the Sasquatch and you truly want a relationship with them, and you want a relationship that's soul to soul and not just, I want to see them physically or I want to get a video of them. If you want a deep relationship with the Sasquatch, check the book out. That will totally guide you in how to do that. And that's basically what the book is. The book goes into, how I came to be and how I, experienced the Sasquatch from, when I first started to now. And it also, the last part of the book is basically a guide to, building your own relationship with a Sasquatch. How do you go about doing that? It's a general example of, what the Sasquatch will generally do in order to, build that relationship with you. So, yeah, I mean, check it out. I think you won't be disappointed for sure if you have that real heart desire to. If you're merely just looking for, physical evidence, I mean, there's other books for you.
And then if people want to work with you, you have a website, right?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me on my website, OregonSasquatchEncounter.com. So if you type in www.OregonSasquatchEncounter.com, you can get a hold of me on there. I'm on Facebook. Oregon Sasquatch Encounters on Facebook, Instagram. You should be able to find me, no problem.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I loved this conversation. It was super cool, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Anytime I can speak my truth, I'm all for it. And like I said, this is my truth. This is my experience. It doesn't have to be your experience. I'm just here to help guide you and help, be a bridge to connect with the Sasquatch. It may look different than mine. It doesn't have to be like mine. It's going to be totally unique to you. And I urge you to take that step. And, if you want, take that step and connect with the Sasquatch. So.
Awesome. All right. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to conclude this episode. If you liked what you watched, you can like and subscribe and check out Michael's. I'll put all of his details in the description underneath the video, and have a great night. We'll see you guys later. Bye. All right.